5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm done with you, Microsoft. It's finally time for me to say goodbye to Windows and as many of your other products as I possibly can. I usually try to avoid pointing out how old I am, but I've used Microsoft Windows for approximately 32 years now. My family got its first real computer in 1993. It was a Gateway with a 486 DX2 processor, 16 megabytes of RAM, and a 340 megabyte hard drive, if I remember correctly. It ran MS-DOS 6 and Microsoft Windows 3.1. Since then, I've had plenty of other computers and have used lots of different versions of Windows. I haven't always exclusively used Windows. I've had Macs or MacBooks at different jobs I've worked at, and I've tinkered with Linux distributions for things here and there. But I've always had some version of Windows as my main operating system on my main PC. It's just what I daily drive. It's what I've always used as my main computer. Windows 3.1, 95, 98, 98 2nd edition, Vista, XP, 7, 8, 8.1, and Windows 10. I've extensively used a lot of different versions of Windows. But Windows 10 support mostly ends in October, and, in my opinion, Microsoft's forced migration to Windows 11 has been a complete and total disaster. Windows 11 compatibility sucks. And I think this whole thing might even end up being one of the worst ecological disasters of our time, as Microsoft forces tons of computers out of service, generating massive amounts of e-waste. It's also a hugely unnecessary expense for a lot of people. This whole situation just sucks. My name is John, and this is my YouTube channel, where I make videos about whatever I feel like. Today, I feel like breaking up with Microsoft and kicking Windows to the curb. For real this time. So what is my issue with Windows 11? Why am I not just upgrading? Well, first and foremost, I couldn't officially upgrade even if I wanted to. This is my laptop. It isn't my only computer, but it's one of my two main computers. It's an Acer Predator Helios 300 with an Intel i7 7700 HQ processor, an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 6GB graphics card, 16GB of DDR4 RAM, a 512GB NVMe drive for the operating system, a 2TB SATA SSD for file storage, and a 15.6-inch 1080p display. I've had it for several years. It's a brick in my bag, it isn't the prettiest thing aesthetically, and it's showing its age, but it's still a very capable computer. It can still play all but the absolutely most demanding games. It handles most of the creative software I use, including some of my DaVinci Resolve work. Editing video on it isn't exactly a pleasure, and I prefer to use my desktop workstation, which is newer and more powerful, but this laptop is still capable enough to not deserve a trip to the landfill. It's still a perfectly good and usable laptop. But Microsoft says otherwise. It doesn't matter that this laptop is powerful enough to run Windows 11. Microsoft's official system requirements for Windows 11, according to their website, include a 1 GHz or faster CPU with 2 or more cores and appearing on our list of approved CPUs. My laptop CPU is a 3.8 GHz processor with 4 cores and 8 threads. While it's an oversimplification to compare processors based solely on clock speed and core count, this processor would destroy a 1 GHz dual-core processor in pretty much any performance test that matters. It is plenty powerful for Windows 11. But you know what it's not on? Microsoft's approved processor list. Microsoft, for the most part, only supports Intel processors Core 8th generation or newer. This laptop vastly exceeds all the other minimum system requirements related to performance. 4 GB of RAM? Check, 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 and check. I've literally got 4 times as much as is required. DirectX 12 capable graphics? Check and check. Both the Intel HD 630 integrated graphics and the GTX 1060 support DirectX 12. 64 GB of storage? Yeah, I've got that covered with 2.5 terabytes of storage space. UEFI firmware? Absolutely. Secure boot? I don't think it should be required for the base operating system to function, but sure, I've got Secure Boot enabled. The only other system requirement is TPM 2.0. This laptop has a TPM module, but not a TPM 2.0 module. That's a little complicated and doesn't actually have to do with performance, so we'll come back to it in a bit. From a strictly power standpoint, my laptop is plenty powerful enough to run Windows 11, but Microsoft says no. They say I need to dispose of this one and go buy a new one. I'm focusing on my laptop a lot in this video, but I want to be very clear. This is not just about this one machine. I have a home theater PC in my living room with an Intel i7 4770K, 16 gigs of RAM, and an AMD RX 580 GPU. I have a home theater PC in my bedroom with an Intel i5 7500 CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, and an AMD RX 6400 GPU. I've got multiple computers in my Homelab and in my project workshop with 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 7th generation Intel Core processors. All of those machines have enough power for Windows 11, but all of them are excluded either because of the approved processor list or the TPM 2.0 requirement, or both. Of all the processors I currently own, only my AMD Ryzen 7 5700X and my Intel N100 are on the approved list. In fact, if I dig through all the working or mostly working computers I own across everything, I have 17 computers. Only 2 of them are authorized for Windows 11. Of the 15 that aren't, there are only 2 that I will concede it is reasonable not to support due to age, lack of firmware support, or general power and capability. Oh, and of those 2 machines that are authorized for Windows 11, one of them is my travel server, so I don't want Windows 11 running on that anyway. It's for running Docker containers. Side note, that travel server project was a fun one. If you're interested in that sort of thing, you can check out my video on it here. So, ignoring my travel server, only my desktop workstation can run Windows 11, according to Microsoft. Am I just bad at computers? Am I alone in using all this ancient hardware from the prehistoric year of 2017 or even earlier? Maybe. I can't find solid numbers when it comes to market share for CPUs currently in use that lets me drill down into this enough. The website userbenchmark.com lists the Intel i7 7700K, a similar processor in the same generation and in the same situation as my laptop, as the 11th most popular processor by market share percentage in the last 30 days of testing. It also lists the i7 6700K from one generation earlier as the 18th most popular processor. That's 2 processors in their top 20 that are not authorized for Windows 11. I'm not a security researcher or anything, I'm just some dude who is angry enough about this that he's making a random YouTube video. I can see that the Steam hardware survey says about 35% of users in the survey are still on Windows 10, despite the looming end of support. I wish I could give you solid numbers and good references to approximate how many functional computers Microsoft says should be thrown away. How many functional computers Microsoft says should be recycled once Windows 10 support ends. But let's not be naive here. Recycling a computer does not mean that computer doesn't end up in a landfill somewhere. It means they take out some of the components to break them down and reuse materials if they can't resell it. Some of that recycled e-waste still ends up in a landfill. Let's be real here. I'm a small YouTuber. This channel, right now at least, isn't even big enough for basic monetization on YouTube. YouTube has paid me exactly $0 so far. This isn't my day job, even if I would like it to be, and I make basically no money for all the work making these videos takes. And they take a lot of work. In fact, I'm going to throw some links to random stuff I think is cool down in the video description. Those are affiliate links, so if you buy anything using them, I may get a small commission. They have nothing to do with this video, and this is in no way, shape, or form sponsored by anyone. But if anyone agrees that the stuff I linked is cool and buys it, maybe I'll at least make enough money to pay for the electricity I use to make this video. But I'm not plugging this stuff out of greed. I'm just trying to explain to you why I don't have a ton of independent research to give numbers here. That stuff's expensive and I can't afford it for this video. So instead, I'm going to quote this article from Windows Central, linked in the description with all of my other sources, where they describe the number of e-waste computers this will result in as millions. Millions, as they put it, might be a conservative estimate. Canalys estimated 240 million. That same number is quoted by TechBuyer. That's a lot of e-waste. Okay, what if you don't care about e-waste and the potential environmental impact aspect of this? I bet you still care about your cold hard cash. If I have to buy a new laptop to replace this one, the closest linear upgrade I could find after a quick search on Amazon right now is this Acer Nitro V for about $950 pre-tax. Yes, that laptop would mostly be an upgrade, but it's still more than $1,000 after tax that I didn't plan on spending because I don't want to replace something that isn't broken. I'm not saying that laptop is what I would buy. I'm using it as an example of a linear, like-for-like replacement and upgrade. And that's just the cost of the one machine. What about my home theater PCs? Scrapping the like-for-like idea to make this more reasonable, I'd probably just get two mini PCs. A quick Amazon search later, and I found two options I'd consider from B-Link. The first is a bit more powerful and would be the ideal choice for both home theater PCs, but it's about $350 pre-tax. If I needed to save some money, I could go with this less powerful mini PC for about $200 for the bedroom, since I don't use that home theater PC for much gaming or demanding work. The economical route is still more than $590 after tax. If I go with the two more powerful B-Links, which is what I would prefer and I think more clearly matches what my current setup can handle right now, that's more than $750 after tax. Add that all up, and I'm looking at a bill of either $1,621.96 or $1,784.37 to have roughly the same functionality I have right now. Admittedly upgraded, but an unwanted upgrade and, in my opinion, an unnecessary expense. And that's ignoring all of my other computers. It's just one laptop and two home theater PCs, which I think is not an unreasonable amount of tech for most semi-techie people. I'm not going to bother shopping for replacements for all the other PCs in my house just to prove a point. An unwanted $1,600 expense to maintain the same functionality you already have is enough to be upset about. Look, I'm a realist. I know technology moves forward and old tech becomes obsolete as we innovate and make things better. That's not what this is. I'm like 90% sure that 486DX2 processor for my first computer is still in a box of my old stuff in storage at my mom's house. I'm not asking Microsoft to support that with their current operating system. That's not reasonable because the hardware can't handle it. This hardware can. So why is Microsoft encouraging me to get rid of it? Why do they want me to throw away multiple perfectly good PCs? Why do they say I have to buy a new one? Okay, let's go back to the requirement I skimmed past, TPM 2.0. What is TPM 2.0? I'm not an expert, but here's the short version. TPM stands for Trusted Platform Module, and the 2.0 is the version number. To oversimplify it a bit, the TPM is a chip in your PC for holding cryptographic keys for device encryption. It's a security thing. According to Microsoft, Windows 11 needs TPM 2.0 for certain security features, including Windows Hello and BitLocker. And honestly, that makes sense. Windows Hello and BitLocker needing an encryption key for encryption makes sense. Do you know what feature in Windows I have never used and never wanted to use? Windows Hello. Most people I know who actually use Windows Hello use it for biometric login, which is something I would never use for reasons beyond the scope of this video. I have used BitLocker before, but I found it to be a huge pain and preferred other encryption options outside of certain high security applications where I didn't have a choice. Also, beyond the scope of this video. You know what those are though? They are features. They are not core components of the operating system. If a TPM 2.0 module is actually necessary for Windows Hello and BitLocker to work on Windows 11, then why doesn't Windows 11 work and those features don't without the required hardware? I have Steam on my computer, but I don't expect Beat Saber to work on it if I don't have a VR headset hooked up. The game requires that hardware, so it doesn't work without it. But if it isn't hooked up, Cyberpunk still works. Everything but the thing that requires the headset still works. Only the things that actually require the hardware don't work. Yes, I realize that argument is flawed. And I readily admit that I'm not a programmer or cybersecurity expert or systems architect. I'm out of my league here. Except we have plenty of real-world examples of people running Windows 11 successfully on unsupported hardware. Sure, those specific features might not work, but the operating system does. Windows 11 does not actually need a TPM 2.0 module to function, period. End of sentence. So why are you telling me to throw away my perfectly good computer because it is missing something I don't actually need? Why are you trying to force me to buy a whole new computer? Yes, I'm aware of the irony that I said I'm being forced to do something while using a Tom's Hardware Guide to bypass the restrictions as a reference. Microsoft says I can't install Windows 11 on this laptop because of the CPU and TPM restrictions, but if I followed the instructions on the Tom's Hardware Guide linked here, I could install it. But how do I know it will continue to work? How do I know Microsoft won't push an update that breaks the workaround or breaks my system because it adds a new check that I fail or something like that? Sorry, but my computer is too important to me to risk it. I keep good backups and have decent digital hygiene, but it would still be a problem if Windows Update bricked my computer, especially at an inopportune time, which seems to be the only time Windows Update ever does anything. Yes, there are other workarounds too. Microsoft announced that they will sell extended security updates for 1 year for $30 per device, or 1,000 Microsoft Rewards points, or if I sign up for their cloud syncing service I don't want and don't trust. And that whole thing, that gets you 1 more year before you're right back to you have to get rid of your perfectly functional PC and buy a new one. So my options are buy a new computer or pay Microsoft again. Yes, the Windows 10 on my laptop was a legit license. Or use Microsoft Rewards points that I don't think I have because I legitimately thought they got rid of that program because they sent me a message on Xbox 2 years ago that they were killing the app. Or I can give Microsoft access to a bunch of my stuff and sign up for a cloud service I do not want or need. Those are my legitimate and reasonable options. I can also just do a clean Windows 11 install on unsupported hardware using the modified ISO or the registry workaround. Or I could sail the 7 seas with a copy of Windows 10 long-term servicing channel and extend the security until 2027 for Enterprise or 2032 for the Internet of Things version. Those options would all let me stick with Microsoft, at least for now, with a reasonable degree of reliability. That's a lot of work to keep using what I already bought. And in all of this, I haven't even really touched on some other major issues I have with Microsoft now. Microsoft is a privacy nightmare. I could add another 30 minutes to this video just complaining about all of the telemetry and arguably spyware in their operating system now. The data collection is excessive and unacceptable. And why are there advertisements in my operating system that I paid for? Also, Microsoft, stop cramming your other products and services down my throat. I am aware of OneDrive. If I want to use OneDrive, I will. I'd rather use my own NAS. Please stop trying to get me to use OneDrive. The same thing goes for Copilot. I know you have an AI. If I want it, I'll go get it. Please stop cramming it into everything without even bothering to find out if I want it. You know what? I'm done. I could do one of those workarounds to keep using a product that I've been using for years. Or I can do what I actually did. Last week I formatted my laptop and I installed Linux Mint. Microsoft, you lost a customer after 32 years. I know it's a meme at this point that every year is the year of the Linux desktop, but this time it actually is. So far, it's been far from perfect, but it's been a long time since I tried to really use Linux as my primary operating system, and it's going a lot smoother than I thought it would. I wrote, edited, and uploaded this video without using Windows at all. Hey, Future John here. I used Linux Mint to research this video and to write the script and do all of the pre-production, but I ran into a bunch of problems in post-production, and it turns out Linux Mint was not right for me in this case. I'll talk about it more in part 2, but I switched to the no borrow Linux distribution. Also, beyond just no Windows for this video, I'm doing all of the editing and post-production on my laptop just to further prove that it's not too old to be useful. Okay, back to the video. But I'll save that for part 2, since this video has grown longer than I originally intended. Part 1 is Goodbye Microsoft, part 2 will be Hello Linux. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see that. And am I going crazy here, or are you thinking about switching too? Let me know in the comments. And again, please like and subscribe. That's the only way this channel can grow, and I really do appreciate the support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.